A steampunk Wild West adventure set in an alternative universe where humans and vampires are locked in a perpetual war. A gung-ho protagonist capable of punching ancient beasts back into the swamp where they belong. Based on this alone, I'll admit I was expecting a good time with Evil West despite its average rating. But I wasn't planning on this being a story explained video because, honestly, I wasn't expecting much of a story. Yet beneath its fast-paced, lightning-charged combat, there's a surprisingly engaging narrative that deserves a closer look. All of the video is from my New Game Plus run, which even though it was on the hardest difficulty, we are so enormously overpowered, it is great fun. In fact, I enjoyed this run more than the first. I'm the Baker Gaming, and welcome to my What's the Deal With series, where I play through games for the very first time and unpack both their story and their mechanics. Some are new, some are old, but the rule is simple. I must never have played them before. No nostalgia, no bias, just fresh eyes and a healthy dose of curiosity. This week it's time for Evil West, a third-person action-adventure where we face an army of vampires and their twisted familiars, where your father desperately wants you to grow up and take your place at the head of the Rentier Institute, a family-run organisation dedicated to keeping the bloodsuckers at bay, and where a corrupt Secretary of Defense uses the chaos of war to line his pockets, manipulate Congress, and ultimately to try and seize the Institute for himself. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, you, Jesse Rentier, a steampunk cowboy armed with an electric gauntlet that would make even Tesla jealous. Evil West doesn't waste any time easing us in. We open mid-mission, riding with our partner, Edgar, a retired hunter who's clearly seen more vampire guts than we've had hot dinners. We're chasing Chester, a vampire who liked to play both sides, and useful for information, if we encourage him in the right way. Combat begins straight away. It's fast-paced, direct, and surprisingly satisfying. Enemies only attack in well-signposted areas. You always know when a fight is coming, but that doesn't make the ambushes any less chaotic. Each time an enemy is introduced, they feel unbelievably strong. But give it a few battles, and suddenly they're just another member of the ever-increasing vampire army. Jesse can try to hold enemies at a distance with his revolver, but calling it ranged combat is generous. Those pistols feel like they're firing insults. The real heart of the game is getting in right up close and personal. The electric gauntlet turns Jesse into something between a cowboy and a living cattle prod, smashing enemies into walls, floors, and occasionally back into whatever swamp they crawled out of. We quickly find Chester, locked inside a train car. Dragging him out, we politely ask for the location of the vampire leader, Peter. This doesn't work, shockingly, but pulling him out into the sun does. A little light persuasion, quite literally, and suddenly he becomes very cooperative. Continuing through the desert, we reach the vampire hideout. We can't see it at first. Apparently vampires can hide entire buildings behind a magic veil called Glimmer. There's nothing we can do about this yet, but Chester can dispel it. With the hideout revealed, we enter and meet Peter in our very first real boss fight. It's fun, chaotic, and a decent test of everything that we've learned so far, but honestly, not much more notable than any regular encounter up to this point, just longer. Still, defeating him, we take his head, which proves useful because, well, it can still talk. We bring him back to the Rentier Institute, just in time for our father, William Rentier, the current head of the Institute, to demonstrate the upgraded Rentier Gauntlet to the Assistant Director of Defense, James Harrow. And if you haven't picked it up by now, yes, this seems to be a family-run organisation. No elections, no board meetings, just the Rentier bloodline. And we're next in line whether we like it or not. William wants Jesse to give up field work and take over as head. Jesse, though, very much disagrees. Before the demonstration can even begin, a massive attack erupts. Felicity, a far more powerful vampire and apparently the real leader of this new vampire movement, swoops in on a zeppelin, bringing in an entire army with her. They crash straight into the heart of the Rentier Institute, killing agents, destroying everything, and gravely injuring William. We barely fight our way out with Edgar, William, and Harrow in tow. We lead the survivors to Calico, a small rentier outpost, but it's night, which means the vampires are closing in fast. As all seems lost, Jesse's gauntlet suddenly reactivates, massively overloaded. Jesse zaps around at lightning speed, shredding enemies with ease, holding out until sunrise, which saves what remains of the group. At Calico, we regroup. We meet Virgil, a gifted engineer, and Amelia, the leader of the outpost. Unfortunately for William, a doctor, the new gauntlet is heavily damaged. Harrow is furious, and we still have no idea how the vampires pulled off such a coordinated assault, or what their endgame might be. Jesse and the others hatch a plan. Find Scott Bloom, a missing Rentier agent who was investigating a nearby vampire cell. Maybe he uncovered something. Maybe he has answers, because right now all we have is more questions. Evil West is very linear, moving from one fight to another until we reach the goal of each chapter. But there are small branching paths, little detours that become harder to spot as the game goes on. Down these side tracks, we find documents full of lore, piles of cash we can use for weapon upgrades, and new powers for Jesse. These abilities need to be unlocked with perk points, earned in the old-fashioned way by piling up XP through combat. When enemies are defeated, they drop either health or energy, which can be used to unleash powerful attacks. Two ultimate playstyles are unlocked, one where health can be turned into energy, or one where health is no longer dropped, just energy, making for a fast-paced, high-octane combat style. That's the one I chose, and it's immense fun. Back out into the desert, this time alone, Jesse finds Scott Bloom's carriage, or rather, what's left of it. It's completely obliterated. This doesn't look good. Not far away, vampire familiars appear, but something's wrong. These familiars, normally just humans under vampire influence, can now transform into full-on beasts, and they're doing it in broad daylight. Interesting, and judging from Jess's reaction, completely unexpected. We eventually find Bloom himself, hiding under a mountain of dead bodies. Honestly, can't really blame him. He explains that the vampires have developed a way to infect familiars, granting them the ability to transform, but what's causing this affection, we don't know. Back in Calico, we report what we found. Edgar believes Felicity has managed to infect William Rentier. If that's true, it's catastrophic. An infected William could give the vampires indirect access to his mind, and he knows every weakness the Institute has. Edgar, though, recalls a natural cure, hidden deep inside a swamp. He'll go after that, while Jesse prepares for the next step, turning Virgil, the engineer who's never held a weapon in his life, into a field agent. Together, we'll head into an abandoned Rentier Institute base, where Jesse hopes the damaged gauntlet can finally be repaired. This abandoned base is a welcome change of pace. Sure, there's still fights, but they're spaced out between light puzzles, following cables to find the right lever, redirecting power, that sort of thing. And then there are the very annoying, out of control minecart sections. Shoot the point switches, lean, dodge, repeat. You know the deal. None of it is groundbreaking, but at least it breaks up the relentless brawling of earlier chapters. The problem is, the puzzles never really evolve. What's fresh here becomes rather repetitive later on. The good news, Virgil finally repairs the gauntlet, fully functional again. While exploring the base, we also discover a massive ancient corpse. Apparently, Felicity used its uncorrupted blood as the source for her familiar's infecting serum. It's fascinating in a disturbing way, but she's drained this corpse completely, so where's she getting more from? Back in Calico, a new lead surfaces. A sawmill was recently purchased by a group linked to Felicity. Off Jesse goes. At first, he can't even get into the mill. It's protected by glimmer. But tracking the glowing veins and destroying their source, he dispels the illusion, and with the newly repaired gauntlet, Jesse simply punches his way through. You're going to get used to this. Inside, the sawmill is completely abandoned. So why did the vampires want it? Pushing deeper into the forest, we get our answer. Leeches. Thousands of them. They're feeding on another ancient beast and used as storage for the blood. I can't lie. I'm quite impressed at the simplicity of this. When Felicity bled the first monster dry, she simply found herself a backup supply, and of course, this culminates in a boss fight. We must destroy this ancient beast. It's classic horror game style. A massive creature, multiple phases, clear weak points, plenty of chaos. It's a really fun fight. There's an achievement for beating it without killing any of the ads, and another for doing it on evil difficulty, hence my second run through the game. At least there's a new game plus, because I wouldn't fancy tackling this fresh without all of my upgrades. Returning to Calico, Jesse updates the team, but things take a dark turn. William Rentier attacks Virgil during a check-in. This infection is getting worse. Jesse manages to subdue him, but Amelia believes keeping William alive is only giving Felicity a direct line to them, a liability that could doom the entire institute. Off to the swamp we go, hoping to find Edgar, and more importantly, the mysterious herb that can stop the vampire infection. Once again, Evil West shifts gears. The swamp is a refreshing change of pace. Thick fog, gnarled trees, spiders everywhere, and a new enemy type that spits web across the arena, slowing Jesse to a crawl if he gets caught in them. The whole chapter leans heavily into the environmental puzzles, mostly involve redirecting wooden platforms so we can sprint across the poisonous swamp water before it eats through our boots. Honestly, this was one of my favourite chapters mechanically, which makes it a shame that these ideas never really reappeared later. Deep in the swamp, at the very centre of an abandoned stone temple, we find Edgar. Not only has he found the herb, he's decided he's back in the game. No more retirement for him. He's sticking with us until this is over. Back in Calico, things are tense. Amelia is pacing outside when we return. Harrow has turned up and is inside, pacing even harder, ranting about his plan to take over the Institute. Good thing he doesn't know William is infected, otherwise he'll be doing backflips. As far as Harrow is concerned, William is simply dead, which is much tidier. Jesse and Amelia still clash a bit. They barely know each other, and the last time they spoke, Amelia was terrified William's condition would leave Felicity straight to them. But she gets to work immediately, using the swamp herb to mix the cure. Jesse and Edgar administer it to William. For a moment, it looks like it might actually work. William partially comes back to himself, but then Felicity forces her way through, speaking through him, mocking us. She isn't letting go of her hold over William that easily. The gang wants to go straight to Dickinson, where a railway company has been taken over by the same consortium that bought out the mill. Instead, Harrow, now apparently running the show, sends us to investigate an oil field. He claims that we need to find the paper trail. Apparently, the vampire group's money is supposed to help him pay for the war. Yeah, sure, money. The oil field is deserted, except for some of our new friends. Fighting through them, we find several group of workers abandoned and left to fend for themselves. We solve a few simple puzzles to reach them. A new mechanic shows up here. We can charge the gauntlet using a large battery, which leaves it overcharged for a few seconds, just long enough to sprint to a power supply that needs the extra juice. We push through the burning remnants of the oil field, battling endless monsters until we finally reach the office. Inside, we find that the workers aren't the only ones abandoned. Biddle, an accountant, is still there, trapped behind a mountain of paperwork. He tells us Harrow is behind all of this, and the documents we were sent to collect prove this. We haul our evidence back to Calico, only to discover that Harrow is now Secretary of War and basically untouchable. Metaphorically, at least. Jesse picks him up by the neck, but Harrow barely reacts. He knows it's safe, no matter how hard Jesse threatens. We go to speak with William Rentier, and he's better, much better. He already knows about Harrow's corruption. Apparently, this isn't exactly a new development for the man. William also describes strange echoes of thoughts he's been having, boxcars, enormous creatures underground, and a sense of movement. He believes Felicity is transporting the leeches by train. Great. We should have gone straight to Dickinson. Reaching the train station becomes our new goal, but unfortunately, it's a long hike. We push through a maze-like stretch of town, Felicity's mocking giggles drifting through the air. She clearly doesn't see us as a threat. Along the way, we'll deal with the familiar puzzle types from earlier chapters, plus a few new enemy variants. A vampire gunslinger, reminding me so much of Revolver Ocelot, it's absurd, and a hulking, heavily armoured bloodsucker that hits like freight trains. We eventually reach a church filled with terrified humans. Felicity stands outside, almost bored, and casually sets the entire building on fire. A brutal, wave-based fight breaks outside as she slips away. The trains can't be ready yet. We still have time to stop the leeches, but we have no idea where she's taking them, and there's nothing we can do for the people trapped inside the church. It's already too late. After more puzzles and skirmishes, we finally catch up to Felicity. The trains are nearly prepared, but instead of fighting us herself, she summons an enormous mermaid-like vampire monstrosity, the Brunch. Naturally, it's a phase boss fight. The creature is fast, blindingly fast, darting across the arena, whipping at us with its tail, unleashing waves of leeches, or summoning massive swarms to heal itself. There are achievements tied to beating it on evil difficulty and defeating it without letting it heal, which genuinely adds replay value to a fight that's already one of the more enjoyable ones. Chapter select does help, though the levels are so long and repetitive that replaying them can be a chore. We eventually take down the Brunch, but before we can catch our breath, Felicity swoops in, demonstrates just how absurdly powerful she is by casually knocking Jessie out in a single strike, and escapes on the now ready trains. Which begs the question, why didn't she just do that right at the start? We're dragged into a nearby church for safety. Apparently, the Rentier Institute is well known in these parts, well enough that there's an old abandoned field camp just outside town. Once again, Jesse has no idea it even existed. If he really plans on taking over the Institute someday, he might want to start reading a few internal memos. The Reverend explains the situation. The town is infested with monster nests. If we clear them out, he'll send somebody to deliver a telegram for us. To help, he hands over a new dynamite weapon, conveniently left behind by Rentier agents during their last visit. This becomes the game's only semi-open level. For once, we can explore the entire town in whichever order we like, roaming through the streets and burned out buildings while hunting and destroying the nests. After wiping out the last of them, we return to the church to report in. The telegram was successfully sent, and Virgil will meet us at the abandoned Rentier camp. This abandoned camp turns out to be the birthplace of the very first Rentier gauntlet. Virgil believes that if we can reconnect the place to its old lightning towers, he can fully repair our gauntlet. Naturally, that means taking another trek with Virgil, meaning he'll take the safe, monster-free pathways while we get the long way around, complete with yet more out-of-control minecarts. Once the towers are reactivated, we end up inside a massive Faraday cage. It's not quite functional yet, so while Virgil works on patching things together, Jesse fends off wave after wave of enemies. Eventually, the machine sparks to life, and it works. Virgil has completely restored the gauntlet. We have a chance. Back at Calico, Harrow is furious. William is up and walking, and Harrow immediately accuses Jesse and Virgil of treason for refusing to kill him. With William still officially considered compromised, Harrow pulls rank and appoints Amelia as the new head of the Rentier Institute, then demands she arrests us. She refuses and tries to throw Harrow out instead. Harrow isn't worried until Jesse starts shooting up the place to make a point. That finally rattles him, and he storms out, muttering threats about bringing the president. He's meeting him at the opera, apparently. We return to William, who should have turned into a familiar days ago, yet he's recovering. More than recovering. His old war injury, the limp he's had for decades, is completely gone. Something strange is happening, but there's no time to investigate. Edgar has already left to track down Chester again, and once more, we head out after him. We climb down the mountainside, through a valley, and into a sprawling cave system. A new enemy type appears, a human lugging a minigun. After sneaking around and taking it from behind, Jesse claims the gun for himself. Nice. or at least it should be. Turns out it's slow to recharge and not particularly powerful. Honestly, it's a bit of disappointment, and I barely used it again. Deeper into the caves, we're ambushed, right in full view of Edgar, who does nothing to help. After reuniting, he's furious with us. He genuinely thought we were dead and went charging off on a personal revenge mission. Classic Edgar. Loyal, angry, and absolutely done with our nonsense. Pressing on, we destroy more glimmer shields in the tried and true Rentier fashion, punching them extremely hard. Several ambushes follow, during which Edgar suddenly becomes very hands-off. Convenient. Eventually, we track down Chester again, who Edgar has, pinned to a table with a knife through his hand. Effective motivational technique, if nothing else. Chester explains that the herb we used on William will only slow down the infection, not cure it. William will turn. It's just a matter of when. Chester also reveals Felicity's larger plan. She wants to destabilize Washington, D.C. and bring down the government. We already knew she intended to use the trains to spread the infection, but now we learn that she's breeding bats in Persephone and funneling all of her money through Carmine, her true base of operations. Perfect. 2 new crisis points to visit. We head back to Calico to plan our next move, only to find the base in ruins. William has turned. He's slaughtered everyone except Amelia. Poor Virgil was the first to go. He'd been so proud to work with the great William Rentier on new inventions. It's gutting. There's only one thing to do now. We have to stop our father. We finally reach the train yard, alone. Working our way through its familiar territory by now. Fight, simple puzzle, fight again. But this time, William's voice follows us, echoing from somewhere unseen. He tempts Jesse with promises of power if he joins him. It's all very reminiscent of another father-son conversation from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Eventually, we climb the belfry, where the swarm of bats are being bred. It's time for the boss fight. William is fast and hits like a freight train, firing at us with his revolver, launching waves of leeches, and slamming the ground with fiery punches that deal huge AoE damage. As usual, there are achievements tied to the fight. One for beating him on evil mode, another in doing it under 6 minutes. It's tough, but a genuinely fun encounter. The boss fights really are the highlight of this game. We defeat our father and burn the body so he can never return. But Felicity isn't here. That means she must be in Carmine or already on her way to DC. We head for Carmine. Edgar already has the same idea, and he is en route in a Zeppelin he stole from Harrow, naturally. When we arrive, a massive showdown unfolds in front of the bank. It goes about how you'd expect. Chaos, explosions, monsters everywhere. The bank is sealed behind a glimmer shield. At this point, you know exactly what we need to do. Inside, we discover a cave system where Felicity has been storing Peter's head. We already know she doesn't have enough familiars left to launch a full attack on DC after we destroyed the leech farm. But we still don't know how she plans to pull this off. Peter won't talk until we've detonated the fire. Then suddenly, he's very cooperative. He reveals the plan. There's an opera tonight, attended by the president with almost no security. That's where Felicity will strike. This is the very same engagement that Harrow told us about as he left Calico. Peter laughs when he hears our intention. It's too far away. There's no way we'll arrive in time. Normally, he'd be right. But just as we step outside, here comes Edgar and Amelia descending the stolen Zeppelin. At the opera, everyone is already dead and the president is missing. For a moment it feels like we're already too late and Peter was right. We push through the theatre, and this was easily the hardest part of the game for me, especially on evil difficulty. It's a gauntlet of every enemy type we've encountered so far, thrown at us in relentless waves. Die, and you start the whole thing again. It's brutal. But eventually we break through, and there she is, Felicity. Furious, she transforms into her true form, a massive dragon-like monster. The fight is pure chaos. Huge AoE blasts, fire everywhere, collapsing scenery, tail whips, leech swarms, but in true Evil West fashion, the solution is the same as always: punch harder. Eventually, she falls, and in a final burst of light and flame, she explodes. The group arrive with the president, shaken but alive. Harrow immediately jumps from whatever hole he was hiding in, eager to take credit for everything. Amelia shuts that down instantly. One uncharacteristic punch, and he's out. During the chaos, she managed to tell the president all about Harrow's corruption, and he's arrested on the spot. With the threat ended and Felicity destroyed, the Rentier Institute is handed back to Jesse. He'll run it alongside Amelia, rebuilding and growing it into a force strong enough to finally keep the vampire menace at bay, hopefully in the Evil West 2. Overall, I really enjoyed Evil West. The story was surprisingly strong, the combat was consistently fun, the enemy designs were great, and the scenery changes kept things fresh, and the boss fights were definite highlights for me. A lot of the deeper lore is tucked away inside the collectibles, which isn't a bad thing, but if you skip them, you'll follow the plot just fine. You just won't have a clue what the Rentier Institute actually is. Each chapter brings a new environment, which helps break things up, but the downside is that the levels are long and often repetitive, and the puzzles, unbelievably repetitive. If half of those were cut and the collectibles hid a bit more creatively, the game would have been stronger for it. At the moment, Evil West goes for around £20 new, and I picked up my copy for about half that from a major used game store. At that price, it's an absolute bargain, and typically, given that I've just bought it, it's back on Xbox Game Pass. If you want to spend a few hours yeeting monsters into oblivion with a lightning-powered gauntlet, Evil West is well worth your time. If you made it this far, thank you. And if you've enjoyed the video, please give it a like and a subscribe. It helps more than you know. See you next time, and stay safe out there, vampire hunters.